Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Sophia Veritas. She is an author of the graphic novel series Invocada, and she shares her journey of hybridizing spirituality and anime for storytelling, balancing creative passion with a day job, and navigating the challenges of self publishing. Welcome to the show, Sophia.
Thank you so much for having me, AJ. It's a
You are
pleasure.
welcome. You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Sophia. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about self publishing, we'll talk about graphic novels, and we'll talk about creative grit and much more. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, your story, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Certainly. Where would you like me to begin?
Anywhere which makes makes the audience understand more about you, better about you.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start off with basically as far back as the origin of this story goes. I had the idea for I want to say the predecessor to this story around junior year of high school. So I grew up for the first 18 years of my life in Manchester, California. That's specifically the northern section of California, small town, United States. Did not really have any friends in my age group up until that year. That's when I met my very first friend. I started to develop any sort of real social circle, and I got into creative writing around that time. That's where we had some of our first shared interests. And I always had this hyper overactive imagination, but it was during that time that I started to actually really put things down in some sort of cohesive scripted form on paper. And that was definitely a really enlightening and enjoyable experience. So I got started that way, but uh, it kind of had to be on hold because my main overall passion at the time was acting. I had gotten to be Dracula in a play in freshman year, and so I thought, hey, maybe I can be in theater. Maybe I can even go to Hollywood. Who knows? Sky's the limit. So upon graduating, I went to university in Ashland, Oregon, which is uh, in the relatively same small town West Coast cultural area, but still a different state, even though it's barely a few miles away at the end of the day. And I basically flunked out on the very first audition class to be an actor. So I ended up pivoting pretty quickly because I needed to make a career, I needed to figure things out. And I ended up finding communication theory. It's also known as human communication. It's a little bit of a redundant title. I took that, and that was a big part of becoming a better person. It taught me a whole lot of things. There's a joke that uh, communication theory is psychology, but for people. And even though that's kind of interdepartmental joke, it's true to a certain degree because it's very applied psychology. So I took all of that and I graduated, and it wasn't a lot of particularly useful uh direct information on how to get a job right away, but it did provide me with a lot of skills, and it did help me out in the job that I currently have. So I'm currently a legal assistant in a small uh well, excuse me, more of a medium-sized law firm in downtown Portland, Oregon, which I moved up to. And I didn't start out as a legal assistant. I was actually a customer service professional, but eventually my role shifted over into doing actual legal assistant work. And having those communication theory skills helped me transition into customer service. But working where I have worked for the past 10 years really drilled into me practical implementation. I've always been very much this person fascinated by ideas and possibilities, and learning how to actually follow through not just on mandatory obligations like going to school, but on my own passion projects is a big part of why I'm here right now, and I actually have something self-published, and I have another book on the way.
Absolutely, absolutely, Sophia. So for the audience, what is it that you want them to understand from you? What is it that you are trying to say?
Um, well, that's a very broad question, and I love broad questions. Uh, so let me think about that for a sec. If we're talking about from a career standpoint, I would both in terms of being employed, but also having this part-time job that I have with my self-published works. I would say persistence is an absolute must. Persistence and follow through. Uh, you can have a great idea. You can have a concept that you really love. You can even believe in it, but you actually have to follow through. You have to figure out the details, and you have to be willing to hold yourself accountable. You can't just rely on your own self narrative. I have growing up observed that there's a relatively unhealthy tendency out there for a fair amount of people to believe that because they are morally correct, that means that inconvenient things shouldn't happen to them, that they should get what they want. And it would be nice if that's how everything worked, but you have to account for the things that are unfair, the things that are difficult. You have to actually consider things that are just straight up inconvenient but are necessary to do, which is not to say that I'm here promoting immorality or anything like that. Far from it. Uh, but one of the things I learned right away just starting at the law firm that I'm at is that uh for example, just the ordinary world of just people who go to stores, go to their jobs, drive cars, etc., is detached from the legal world where it's about both the letter of the law, and it's also about who's in charge of implementing it and what practical considerations they have. And there's these disconnects from these two separate realities, but they still are realities that people have to live with. And you still have to get things done according to that. You can't just have your way. You can't just stomp your foot, complain, etc. If anything, complaining usually puts you in a worse place. Which is not to say that you can never vent, but it's important to consider the fact that there's a time to do it elsewhere. You have to get along with people, including sometimes people that are the worst even. It ultimately makes what you're aiming to do be much more likely to happen. Uh, if we're talking more specifically about the story itself, these self-published books, that is been a lesson in collaboration. So I'm the author of the text, the ideas, the characters, the dialogue. I have contract artists in the Philippines who do the artwork, and it's very much a partnership endeavor. Uh, and communication, communication, consideration of what they need, willingness to be flexible. These are things that allow this sort of stuff to become a reality.
Absolutely, absolutely, Sophia. So tell us a bit about your series Invo Kada. How did you this whole idea come about? How when did you start taking this seriously? Because your job also can quite be must be keeping you quite busy.
Oh, yes. So I've always been this imagination, crave ideas person. It's helped to be exposed to a lot of other creative works and not necessarily just immediately in the same uh media type, because the art style here is in the manga style, though it's not traditional Japanese manga. There's some overlapping tropes here and there, but not a whole bunch of them. Uh, but being able to draw on a whole host of different narratives for inspiration and instruction across just various different media works, prose books, movies, TV, video games, all of it. Uh, it re- it really helped out to figure out what's possible and what's useful. Uh, in fact, I would say that this is not the vast majority of my time, but I spend a pretty fair amount of time overthinking what constitutes a good story. Uh, and something that I've actually found over time is, contrary to a lot of the zeitgeist out there, there's actually a lot more in the way of good ways to tell stories than what people would think. A lot of things are less low quality than they're made out to be. There's kind of a financial interest for things to be portrayed as worse than they actually are, which isn't to say there aren't bad stories, bad media that exist, just maybe not as much as believe. But uh, this work is inspired not just by all of those uh crave works that fascinated me throughout my life, but also my own personal spirituality and fascination with spirituality and religion. I grew up in a mixed religion household. I have Catholicism on my mother's side, and I actually have Kashmiri Shaivism on my late father's side. And growing up in my hometown, I leaned more towards my mother's teachings and the church we went into. I followed all the sacraments through to completion. And then as my life went on, I actually ended up switching over and taking on the ideas that my late father left for me. My first book is actually dedicated to him. There's a dedication page towards the very start. Uh, but a lot of the mythology that's present in both of these books is it draws from all sorts of different cultures, but a lot of it is hybridization of the concepts from both spiritual groups, both religions, uh, into something that it's not necessarily going to be 100% original, because that's just not possible in this day and age. But I would like to think it's something that is of myself. that I'm sharing with the world.
Absolutely. So, what's the storyline and why graphic novel? What is a graphic novel?
Well, a graphic novel, it's in the same category as Japanese manga, as comics, etc. It's where you have the pages, and then uh, you have just graphic depictions of the characters physically doing actions. And you have text boxes where the dialogue or narration is present. And the reason why I chose to do a graphic novel series as opposed to just prose literature is that I do not like to write descriptions of objects and characters. I can do it well enough. I'm competent at it. It gets really tiresome, and it also uh is not as useful as I would like to adequately uh depict the way that the characters look in my head. Uh there's been this really fun experience I've had with my graphic artists that I'm partnered with, having them create the concept art and making the pages of these books. Because the more that they do this, and I get to see these characters are in my head in this static, locked in form on paper, or the uh, little lights on a computer screen, it makes everything just sharper and clearer in my head and helps me visualize the next step forward. I have the skeleton of this entire series in my head. I know what the ending's going to be and the vast majority of the plot beats to get to there, but having everything laid out visually as we build it out helps me figure out, okay, this is what we need to do next. In these next 5 to 10 steps. So it's definitely a lot more useful to my creative process, even though it's actually far more expensive than if I were to just sit down on my own and just hammer out paragraph after paragraph of prose with dialogue mixed in. I could just have somebody make some really abstract cover art and slap that on top of a whole bunch of pages and put that out, but it just doesn't work for me. I was raised by somebody who is a speed reader who can read very long books. My mother, she is an excellent prose book reader, and she really tried to drill reading a lot of books into me as a kid, and she succeeded. But when I had my own personal freedom, I found that even though I enjoyed all of the series that I read that she either handed to me or I even found on my own, it just was not my medium. And and when I got to exposed later on to other things such as manga, such as anime, I looked at that all of that, and I realized this is what I'm about right here. But maybe not these specific plot beats, these tropes. Let me try my own spin.
Absolutely, absolutely, Sophia. So, in short, if you can tell the storyline for this and how many
Right.
book series is it, and who is this series for? Book series for?
So I'm going to try to summarize this as best as I can, and try not to spoil this as much as possible, because a lot of the allure is experiencing firsthand. The physical starting point of this story is a not too distant future where the human race is facing a slow burn apocalypse. It seems at first glance like it's a zombie apocalypse. there are no zombies. There are people who are committing random anarchic violence as a form of trendiness. It's popular to go out and commit violence at that point. It just general breakdown of social order across the board. And the main characters of this first book are, they just want to get away from all of it. They want to see if there's any sort of reality that is outside of that experience, and they found a mystical internet rumor. They're looking to see if it's true, and they find out that there's something to it. But just because there is a mystical reality outside of the normal material reality, that doesn't mean that everything is better in that world. And the long and short of it is that they are finding a world where divine beings exist. You can walk up to them and talk to them, assuming that they'll want to talk to you, assuming that they're even friendly. And the plot ensues from that. As far as how long this is, I have 20 graphic novels planned. I know I just got done saying that I'm not into writing prose text novels, but there are about 3 to 5 supplemental prose text novels that I'm planning on doing to buttress the story, to tell parts in between the main sections of the story, and that's this series. I actually have 2 more series that are in the same timeline, same world, but on a grander scale, that are planned after this, and this is all my life's work. As to who this is for, who should be into it, there's no specific demographic I'm aiming for. This is for anybody that is interested. I would say the only people that it is not for are children. Anybody that's under 18. And it's not because there's any sort of weird sexual stuff in it. It's because there is actually a lot of uncensored combat violence going on, and also just the various higher level spiritual concepts that, while I realize there's such a thing as parental discretion, in my head it's just not something that's really anything that I would expose my own kid, if I had one, to. And I prefer to write to adults, people that have enough life experiences, even on the lower end, to grasp the concepts fully. Though, so anybody that's not a kid, go for it. This is for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, are how many of these books are already out or will be out? How do people understand that part?
So far we have 1 published book from 2023. It is Daughter of the First Angel, and that is available right now. We are currently in the process of creating book 2, The True History of the World. And we are actually currently doing a 2-for-1 deal. So you buy book 1 and you get book 2 for free when it comes out, and it's for the price of just the one. So it's $10 to support independent digital media. This is an entirely digital release. We have no physical copies because it helps us with overhead, and specifically not having any. And this is entirely self-published and self-distributed. So we're not on Google, we're not on Amazon, we're not on Apple. and it's just on our website, invocada.com. You pay for the digital license, and it's a lifetime digital license. You get to read it on the website anytime you want, and you also get to download an offline ebook file for your ebook, so you can just put it on your phone and read it whenever you like, and it's yours. You get to have it. There's no weird software that has to phone back to home and authenticate and confirm that you are authorized and permitted to read this because you're trusted as somebody who paid for the copy.
Absolutely, absolutely, Sophia. There is so much to learn about all this, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, get hold of your book. What is the best way for them to do so?
Just go straight to invocada.com. It's all right there. We have a subreddit on reddit.com. The Nobody's really there yet, but the goal is to change that up. And I have a YouTube channel, but there's barely anything there. Also, something that I am looking to get changed. We'll be expanding our social media footprint soon and very soon, just as the situation allows.
Absolutely, absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, AJ.